means Uskaba, the water of life.
Whisky, for those of you who hadn't cottoned on, is quite a big deal here in Scotland. So much so that we've made this little film about it. We're going to explore its origins as well as its economic and cultural importance, both here and further afield. Seeing as the start is usually the best place to begin a story, we'd better kick off with the history.
The origins of whisky, to do a brief overview, would be rather tricky because they've been distilling spirits or aquavitae in Scotland since I think it's 1492, and the first written record was from a guy called Friar John Corr, who was given leave to do, I think it was distill. He was given 8 balls of grain to distill into aquavitae.
Monks had the privacy that the general public didn't have. Therefore, they were able to develop ales and meads and buckfast and maybe whisky.
All the way throughout the years, they talk about the glens and the rolling hills providing a lovely place to age your whisky. The people who used to, the great thing was that the whisky up in the north, which was the best whisky, which was originally the most illegal and hard to get hold of, people were still happy to risk it because the whisky was that good.
Up from about mid-15th century to mid-17th century, they were relatively free and untaxed. But like everything, the government begins to realise there's a big industry on the go here, and anything that's taxable. They're still doing it to us now, aren't they?
Malt whisky gets all the press. It's the big sell at auction. It's the bit that sort of, it's the premium, the luxury aspect. But it's very difficult to underestimate the importance of grain whisky and the distilling with using a coffee still as opposed to a pot still.
Obviously, certain distilleries will get their own barley. They'll maybe source their barley. It could be more expensive. They'll look at a particular type of barley for their whisky. I think grain whisky is a lot easier to produce, a lot easier to grow.
As far as the Scottish economy goes, Scotch whisky is an undoubted cornerstone. It is our second largest export behind oil and gas, and it's an industry that seems to keep expanding.
Scotch whisky, again, is important. I think it's the most important foodstuff that we certainly nobody's selling large amounts of haggis in the same way. Whisky is now, I think last year was £4.2 billion in exports. I'm not entirely sure that's correct, but it's up in that kind of region.
You know, it's a massive seller all over the world. It's quite an iconic drink. We have a lot of times tourists coming in, from Australia, Taiwan, Japan, etc., who've heard of this pub, who come in for the point of trying whiskies. It's an iconic drink for Scotland, and I think it obviously sells abroad.
I see there being 2 prongs of the economics of whisky. The first one is it's a completely Scottish thing. I know there's other countries make what they call Scotch or make what they call whisky. No offence to the Irish people talking, but Scottish to me, whisky rather to me, is a Scottish thing. On the one prong, we still have a geographically protected product, which will always be there. We can always be the producers of Scotch whisky.
There's always going to be a demand for Scotch, for good whisky. And if with countries, obviously China, with its rapidly growing economy, India as well, these countries they can't get enough whisky.
If you think about what they call the multiplier theory, where every investment made in any particular area has a knock-on effect, because it's not just the investment in producing the item or building the ship or making the whisky. It boils over into the money you pay the people who are doing that, spend it in the local region, and it makes that local region vibrant and economically effective.
As well as in matters of finance, whisky has had a cultural impact that is almost immeasurable, both here in Scotland and around the globe, as well as in TV and cinema, and indeed how we drink the stuff.
I've been actually working with a production company that tried to do the remake of Whisky Galore, using lots of islands and Outer Hebrides. And this time it will be shot in full colour. And again, it glamorises the whole whisky culture, and it brings it more into this century.
The cinema thing is a big thing. you watch Mad Men, they're constantly knocking back whiskey to the point where I think I'm amazed they can actually get any work done. But yeah, it is that thing. At the end of the day, they're always going, they're always looking for, it's still very much seen as an aspirational drink across the world, Scotch. In the United States and in the rest of the world as well. It's when you've made it, you can afford good Scotch whisky.
Scotch whisky is very expensive in the States. Very expensive in a lot of places. I've holidayed in Bulgaria where it costs £45. Or Turkey, where I go often, it's £45–50 for a bottle of white Mackay. So if you drink Scotch whisky, it's a kind of prestige thing. I can afford that.
I think, again, you can do a lot of things with whisky. When you can use it in sauces, cooking. You can use it in cocktails. You can take it in shots. You can mix it. I don't mind whisky cocktails. We in the Lismore have actually recently started doing whisky cocktails. We do get guys that will come in. I've served one myself that was a 21-year-old, and he asked for a bottle of ginger beer. I was very close to refusing for the purpose that it's a 21-year-old malt. You should really enjoy the malt for itself rather than mix it with a fizzy drink.
With all that considered, one question remains. How do you take yours?
A friend of mine in Stornoway, one in the islands, he works in oil rigs, so he does like 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off. So when I go up and visit them, he's got an awful habit of saying to me at 8:30 in the morning, "Ronnie, would you like a wee malt?" I'm like, "No, it's 8:30 in the morning," and he doesn't see a problem with it.
Most malt whisky drinkers I know insist you put a wee drop of water in it. I tend to put a tiny ice cube in mine and then take it out.
It depends on the whisky. I'm a huge fan of the Islas. Kulila 12 is my favourite whisky and has been for a while. I would literally add no more than 15 ml of water, probably less, just to kind of release the oils and get the flavour going.
I think Scotch should be enjoyed, and then just that. However you want to drink it is entirely up to yourself. I personally like it neat or with a little bit of water. That being said, I love Rob Roy's. I think it's one of my favourite cocktails, and some of the cocktails that people are making now, and they're really obviously taking different whiskies, because you've got the smokier ones, the heavier ones that are filled with sherry, the lighter ones that are all bourbon cask and things like that. You can do a huge amount of stuff with Scotch. Whisky is there to be enjoyed. However you want to do it is entirely up to yourself.